WWT presents Experts.
Hey everyone, it's Matthew Coble, host of WWT Experts. As always, I'm here with you to talk with some experts here at Worldwide Technology. And today we're going to be spending some time thinking about the idea that enterprises are increasingly adopting cloud and software as a service solutions, and sometimes the traditional network architectures for those are inadequate to support the distributed nature of work that we see out in the world. And joining me today are two experts from WWT, Greg Schoeny and Neil Anderson, to talk about the transformative impact of cloud-based applications and distributed workforces on service provider network architectures. This is one of 4 episodes on the telecommunications industry that we're hosting to talk about how service providers are thinking about things like artificial intelligence, digital security, and today's topic, business agility. So, Greg Schoeny is SVP of Services and Strategy Solutions for WWT's global service provider business. As such, Greg helps our clients in this industry with all aspects of their business and technology needs, notably security, 5G, mobile edge computing, cloud automation, and of course, overall strategy work. Neil Anderson is WWT's Vice President of Cloud Infrastructure and AI Solutions, and he works within our Global Solutions and Architecture team. And as such, he is focused on our cloud, data center, networking, AI, automation, and other solutions of those kinds. He's been with the company for a little bit over 10 years now, and throughout his career, he's advised organizations large and small about global architectures, IT strategies, and really traversed lots of different industries and lots of different technologies. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. I appreciate you joining us.
Great to be here, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Hey, yep. Matt, great to see you again.
Always great to see you too, Neil. All right, well, let's jump right in. So how are cloud-based applications and distributed workforces changing the architecture requirements for service provider networks?
Well, something to hit on first and foremost that was profound a few years ago when the entire world went home for an indefinite period of time was for service providers. One, it's how to deal with the capacity, right? This rapid increase of capacity of broadband consumption, whether it was entertainment or work or video, and then how to secure, right? How to secure their workforce. I mean, you talk about entire contact centers going home overnight and not coming back. So that changed a lot. You hear a lot about zero trust. You hear a lot about branch services. But first and foremost, and I'd love to get Neil's perspective on this, the world started talking about application security and container security and API. Identity access management came back into fashion, if you will. So a lot has changed. It has also provided a new set of opportunities for our service provider customers, our clients, in terms of how they deliver value to their business services customers, as well as their residential mobile subscribers, broadband subscribers.
Yeah, I agree with that, Greg. And I also see something which is really challenging. Of course, everybody moved home, so people were working from everywhere, but also applications got distributed, right, everywhere. So if you go back 20 years, most network architectures were built for all of our applications lived in nice, tidy data centers, and everybody would go into an office to access those applications, or remote. That's okay too. But now applications are really everywhere, right? They're in the cloud. Everybody uses some form of SaaS application or cloud applications. They are also in the data center. But I look at the world as that, that architecture has really fundamentally changed, and it makes it complex for our service provider, customers out there, because they have to adapt to that. It's no longer about just getting that traffic from a work location to a data center. It's about any-to-any connectivity, wherever people are connecting to wherever the applications are. And that can be really challenging for both our service provider customers as well as all of the users of those services.
Well, Neil, I want to build on that because I certainly agree with you and see that happening as well. But increasingly, I also think we're seeing that organizations are expecting really low latency applications to work. And that's going to rise even further as we continue moving forward with all the AI things that are happening. So how are service providers dealing with that?
Yeah, and especially with AI, that's going to be a very interesting problem as it develops. Especially when you think about AI applications at the edge of networks. Certain applications of AI, like generative AI, which has all the hype right now, right? You can bring a lot of that back and process that centrally, and it's not as you don't need as much low latency there. But when you're talking about applications like computer vision or autonomous vehicles, other things, you really have to have a lot of computing power at the edge of those networks. And that node has to be able to communicate at very high speeds and low latencies to central services that are also processing for AI. So that's going to be a really interesting challenge, Matt, as that develops. And interested in Greg's perspective on that. But I think that there's a role for service providers to play here, a really important role for that high speed connectivity between AI applications and data.
Yeah, Neil, we see an enormous opportunity for service providers in this realm, and it's really focused around taking a step back, all of us thinking about what is that application? Let's say, what is the application the service provider will be delivering to a business services customer? What are the requirements of the application in terms of latency, in terms of security, in terms of data sovereignty? And then backing up and thinking about all of the physical real estate that SPs have, telecom, cable at the edge of the network, be it at the base of a cell tower, be it in the NOC, even at the device edge. And getting back to what Neil was talking about, you think about the training of an LLM or the training of a model, that the heavy duty compute that will happen in an AI factory or GPU factory, that can happen in a central location, and yet the inferencing at the edge is a separate set of considerations. And so we think that the SPs are really well positioned to take that on and operate the inference at the edge back into the GPU in a central location as a service for business services customers. And we're in many conversations with a number of the larger ones on great concept. What does that look like in all practicality to execute against that kind of strategy?
Well, gentlemen, what are the key observability challenges that service providers face as there's increasing flows of traffic, some of which is on their networks and some of which is not on their networks?
Yeah, it's definitely definitely a particular challenge. We call it the owned network and the unowned network, right? And almost no applications now go from user to wherever the workload's running without running over multiple networks, right? The service provider networks are obviously very critical. Broadband networks, mobile networks, all those are tied together in a sort of spider web to be able to carry sessions from the user to the application. And this is, when I look at this, I would say our enterprise customers that are consuming service provider services, they're really struggling with this. They have some islands of observability. They can see things on their network. They can maybe see a little bit of the application stack. But that part in the middle is tough to see sometimes, right? The service provider networks. And so I actually think that there's a real opportunity there for the service providers to offer a service that is an end-to-end observability, help customers with that struggle, because they are at the backbone of that. They just need to improve some of the intelligence outside of their backbone to the edge where the applications are running and to the edge where users are trying to access those applications.
Yeah, and to build on that, I think you're exactly right, Neil. Matt, something a term that's been bantered around in the telecom space for a number of years has been network slicing, right? So the concept of taking your network and working with, let's say, a business services customer and setting up parameters around what you want to do with that, observability, what types of applications are you running, what type of data sovereignty and compliance regulations may you have around that, slicing out a part of the network and delivering that as a service to an enterprise. That's something that has been, I'd say until recently, pretty conceptual, right? The network has to be able to do that. The quality of service has to be in place. But we're beginning to see that come to life. And I'll tell you, edge compute is something that Neil and I have been talking about for a number of years. And yet until AI came on recently, and generative AI in particular, it's now bringing to life a lot of the edge use cases, be it at the premise edge, on the device edge, the network edge. This was something that was, I don't know that it was stalled out, but it really wasn't happening at the pace that we thought edge would be adopted. And now it's in every conversation that we're having with our service provider customer. And Neil, I'd love your perspective, but it seems like most of the conversations we're having with our enterprise customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to, you and I would debate that a little bit, Greg, about like, is it real or not? And I think it was really an architecture in search of the right problem to solve. And I do think that AI is that problem to solve. There's certain things that you just cannot afford to bring back to some central place. You're going to have to do that processing at the edge. And I do think AI is sort of the killer application for edge computing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, I imagine as you're talking with the GSPs, you're advising them around edge computing and probably other technologies they should be looking to have more agile, more flexible networks. What advice are you providing there, and what trends are you seeing in that space?
Well, one area of opportunity, and I would say necessity or strategic imperative, is automation. Right? Looking at an SP network and automating every network function that you possibly can, and doing that for a few reasons. One, the automation tool sets, the models are available. But secondly, there's a challenge with the workforce, right? There's a challenge with if you've got an aging workforce or a workforce that's retiring, you have to be more nimble and leveraging automation anywhere we can. But I guess it's easy to say at 100,000 foot level, but then working with our service provider customers and coming up with a plan, like how do you chunk away at that and begin to automate the things that are right there in front of you, not the more simplistic, but the more basic use cases, and then work into more complexity. The second thing I'd say is this notion of agents, and I've mentioned on one of these before, agentic frameworks. How could you potentially use AI? How could you use agents to better run your networks and improve the observability of, are you routing traffic in the most efficient way? Is the traffic secure? Is there an anomaly? Is there something beaconing out to a port where you don't want it to beacon out? So again, observability is a broad term, but leveraging AI agents is something we're right in the middle of with a number of our large customers.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Greg. Especially the aging workforce, that's going to be huge in the SP space, right? How am I going to retain those skill sets? And I do think that AI has got applicability there. The idea of being able to apply AI to complex network operations, and we're just at the very beginning of that. I think we're going to see some just absolutely tremendous capabilities and tools come online to make these problems a lot simpler. And I think the other thing that will happen is just making people more productive, right? To get out of the toil work and be able to really focus on the more complex business problems, and using AI to tackle some of those more remedial tasks, right? To your point, Greg, about automation, AI is going to be huge for automating those kind of tasks for people.
Well, Neil, I imagine that service providers, like lots of other industry verticals, are trying to find the right balance between getting the most out of their existing infrastructure investments while also adopting the new technologies and looking to advance their existing infrastructure in new ways. So how are you counseling our clients to strike the right balance there?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some speculation that I've read in the market about, the ROI for AI, for example. Are people going to get the right ROI out of it? And there's some speculations or some negative reporting that, oh no, people just aren't getting the ROI out of it. I think you have to look at this very differently. It's not about, I think asking about an ROI is kind of the wrong question to ask. If you think back to the internet and when the internet was created, and our service provider customers had a major role in making that happen, interconnecting those high-speed networks and the mobile broadband networks, et cetera. But that no one quite knew then, like, how are we going to monetize the internet? Is it going to be e-commerce? Is that it? Is it just connecting people? It was all brand new, right? But if you think about it, that was the foundation for the next 20 plus years of innovation and business models. And I think we need to kind of look at AI the same way. I think it's going to take a tremendous investment in that new technology. But I do think it's that investment that's going to fundamentally shift the way we all work, the way we all communicate, talk, and access applications. So that's kind of my view on it, Matt. I think we're at a turning point here, and I think I would encourage and advise all of our customers, including our service provider customers, think about this as, you're going to have to make a major investment up front, but this is a foundation that you're laying for the next 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to build on that, great point, Neil. To build on that, Matt, one of the concepts and the terms that has been, again, bantered around the SP industry for the number of years has been Open RAN, or this idea of opening up and virtualizing the last monolithic piece of a service provider network, the radio access network. And it's incredibly difficult to do, and I'll tell you why. One, you got to deal with 5 nines of reliability, right? And these are the networks that we all operate and run our lives on, our personal lives, our business lives, national security considerations. And so it's not something you tinker with. It's something we have to be very serious about. So we look at the current state of one of our customers' networks, and we figure out, though, what portions of that could we potentially help them virtualize? How could we help them operate that more efficiently? And then back to observability, take the security use case. You can't detect, you can't remediate what you can't see. So if you're now opening up the network, you're introducing software into portions of the network where it's never been introduced before, how are you going to secure that? What is it connected to? And all of those considerations are incredibly important, not to be taken lightly. The good news is these are customers, many of them we've been working with for, if not 10 years, 15, 20, and some of them for 30 years. So in many cases, we built the networks with them and for them, right? We've helped to architect them. So as we look at this next transition and this next wave into AI-enabled networks, into automation and all these different things, for us, this isn't something kind of new off the street. This is the next transition for our customers, and we're going to help them with that the same way we've helped them for 2G, 3G, 4G into 5G. Mm-hmm. And now it's really all things around AI and the potential. But we also have to be careful that we're not putting forth a bunch of false promise. We're working on things with our customers that can deliver value to them, deliver value to their end subscriber base, and building on that.
This episode is brought to you by Graphiant. Graphiant's Edge Network simplifies provisioning enterprise connectivity solutions with rock-solid security at a fraction of the cost of SD-WAN or MPLS.
Well, Neil, I'm thinking about what you reflected on. I'm old enough that I remember the rise of the internet in the 1990s, and some of what's possible now, no one conceived of back then, right? And I think the same is very much true about where we are with AI today and what's possible in the years to come, and that's that similar inflection point. But Greg, I want to pass this to you. I know that the service provider marketplace has gone through several series of evolution, over the years, 5G and things like that. Are there key lessons from that past that we should be talking about now to inform the path forward from here?
Well, I think anyone in the SP industry, and Neil will be amused by this, is there was a lot of false promise with 5G, right? It was going to change everything, and it was going to change everything overnight, and it really has not. There's been some false promise recently with private 5G as a replacement to Wi-Fi, right, in large enterprises. However, right, if we take a step back and we look at what 5G has enabled, right, more speeds, it's enabled, and I would argue many service providers to improve their competitive position. It has enabled many service providers to reduce the propensity for subscriber churn, increase ARPU, right? It's done some of those things. But it hasn't shown up in the respect where you've got a hologram waiting for you at the retail store to guide you through. And so as I look at this next transition to these AI-enabled open networks, I think we have to be careful of false promise, right? I think we have to be focused on tactical ways in which we can help our customers better run their networks, build more robust networks, and deliver more value to their subscriber base. And there are real examples of where we're doing that today. But again, I think people get tiresome of the lofty, it's going to change everything and it's going to change everything overnight, right? I think it's looking for tactical examples of how we can help our customers evolve their business.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Greg, and especially the overnight part, right? I think that was part of the challenge. The technology is fantastic. If you sort of look at 5G, tremendous, right? But I don't think anybody in the technology industry that's close to that thought that this was going to happen overnight. There's millions of cell sites that have to be upgraded with radios, right? But I am starting to see the real promises pay off for our customers, right? If you look at our enterprise customers, they're now turning to 5G to connect their branch offices, where that was always had to be a fixed wired connection before. 5G is enabling some of those that, either for redundancy or just very hard to reach and, with physical cables, places where our customers want to connect. And so I think it is starting to pay off, but I agree with you. A little bit of a hype cycle there, but the technology is fantastic. And it's just when you peel it back, and this, Greg, it's a tremendous challenge having to upgrade these massive, huge networks. The service provider networks are, it's a different, I would say, scale of challenge than our largest enterprise customers face at times.
All right, well, gentlemen, Neil, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about edge computing, volumes of data, increasing velocity, throughput, activity on these networks, traversing different networks. To me, that's a big security risk, right? I mean, those are huge attack surfaces for adversaries to focus on. So how are service providers thinking about their networks to be mindful of the security needs that they have?
Yeah, and here I think, they really do play a key role there, because at the end of the day, all of that traffic is flowing over their networks. Mm-hmm. And so to the extent that they can prevent some of those, some of that malware traffic from reaching its destination, that's just a tremendous value, right? And I think we kind of take for granted that, if you think about all the spam email that's out there, right? Of course, we still get it. But I think for every one we get, our service providers are probably blocking another, 1,000 or 10,000 of those, right? Because of their unique position to be able to inspect the traffic, apply security and policy to that, and keep that from ever reaching our destination. And I think AI is going to allow them to do that even far better. And they are in a key role. When you think about being, a central role there, being able to inspect that traffic and then apply AI to that inspection, they've got a really critical role to play there.
Yeah, I would agree, Neil. Matt, something to think about, and I would say this is service provider networks. I'd say it's any large, complex network where you've got an enormous amount of telemetry, you've got a lot coming at you, you have a lot of attackers coming at you through different vectors for various reasons. AI, the promise of AI, particularly around security, will be to offload things that humans have had to do in the past. So if you think about it, if you can use any sort of automation or practical traditional AI or generative to help reduce the load of alerts that you need to triage, inspect, do correlation, so that the people, which are limited, unfortunately, today, the people you have can work on the higher order problems. And by the time something comes to them, you can leverage AI, you can leverage automation to build some context around what they're looking at. So it's a great example, I think, just a societal example that AI does not replace people. AI does a lot of the work so that your best practitioners can focus on the higher order elements of the security operation. And by the way, that's a better way to retain and have a workforce that wants to be there protecting these incredibly important networks.
Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, I imagine that you're talking regularly with executives at service provider organizations, and I'm curious what advice you're giving to them and what you're hearing from them about ways that those organizations can really differentiate their offerings to be more competitive in the marketplace, with one another and with the other competitors out there.
Well, we have a unique view, and I'll take an example conversation with one or a few of our existing incumbent service provider customers. The good news is these are customers where, in general, we have a high level of trust. We've been working with them on big, complex technology issues and transitions over the past 10 to 15, 20 years. But it always has to map back to a business outcome. It always has to map back to something. What we're saying, is this going to help them increase the profitability of their business? Is it going to help them increase ARPU? Is it going to help them extend into a new market? Or is it going to help them run the network more efficiently? Is it going to help them protect their employee base? Technology talk for the sake of technology talk is frankly exhausting for a lot of our business leader customers. The other thing I think that Worldwide does very well in respect to delivering value to these customers is sometimes translating what they're hearing from their technology teams into business value. If you take the security organization, maybe traditionally not great at talking to the board maybe a little bit disjointed from what they're hearing from the security organization, using our advanced technology center to bench test a lot of technology so that they can do it in a non-production environment. It's part of the value we provide to these customers. But again, I guess if I had to just beacon one point, it would be it's got to map to business value. The technology, the investment, the CapEx, it has to map to business value. And that's something that we're very ardent about when we're out talking to our customers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree, Greg. And when I think about business value, I go back to what are our business customers struggling with, right? What would move the needle for their business if you offered a service to them? One of those is around security, right, and observability. They're struggling to figure out where is the application slowing down, right? If you could offer them a service that helps them understand that problem, you've provided a business value, right? Security challenges. All of our customers are struggling with that, right? Ransomware attacks, every day. Nobody wants to be the next one. And they're having to invest, small fortunes of money in, it's not about if you're going to get owned, you're going to get owned. How do I very quickly recover from that? So I think that's an area where, service providers could offer a value to our business customers by helping them with that kind of service, whether that's a disaster recovery service that helps them with data vaults, et cetera. But to your point, Greg, it comes back to business value. And I'm just thinking about a couple of the, just a tremendous weight on our business customers that they're just really, really struggling with and could use help.
Yeah. And Matt, one more point to build on what Neil said is important. We sit at the nexus between a very large, important service provider business that we run, selling to service providers, technology, architecture, security. But then you think about an even larger business that we have selling to Fortune 100, right, across financial services and banking and manufacturing and energy and retail. So bringing that knowledge and expertise that we have on these large verticals and then working with our service providers to help them articulate, build, develop, design services for those customers is incredibly valuable. And that's something that we've been doing for a long time, but it's again, it gets back to that notion of business value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that we do that and have those different varying points of view to bring together really on both sides, right? To the service provider side and even to our enterprise clients as well, which is fantastic. All right, always often enjoy asking our experts to peer a bit into the future. So I'm going to ask this both of you, Neil, first. What as you look out 5-10 years, what do you think that the leading service providers will be doing? Where do you see the technology going? What advice would you give to people now to make sure they're being prepared for those eventualities?
Well, I think, to be successful, I think it comes back to that fundamental shift in architecture, right, between users and applications. If you're going to be successful as a service provider in the future, you're going to have to meet those business customers where they are, right? And where they are is in that interconnection point of users everywhere, applications anywhere, and how to connect both those worlds. And so I think we're going to see, for the most successful service providers, we're going to see them adapt to that problem and really bring value to our business customers to connect both of those worlds, because that's not going to stop changing. Applications are going to continue to be everywhere, and users are working more and more all over the place, right? And so that's what I see, Matt. And I think AI plays a role there in meeting that architectural need. Security plays a role, and I think extending those service, sort of thinking about it from the perspective of that architecture. It's not about being that tidy, connection point in the middle anymore. It's really about, almost a spider web of connectivity, trying to bring those users to the applications, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt, it's going to be all about 6G. No, I'm kidding. That's there'll be there'll be something beyond that. But Neil said it well. It's really, what is the application? What is the application backwards? What type of network do you need to deliver that application? And that application is delivering value either to a residential subscriber, wireless, wired. It's delivering value to a business services customer, a federal customer. But you're also going to see connectivity appear in many different dimensions. Low orbit satellite, connecting a bunch of people that were never connected globally. Fiber-based network, fiber being pushed more deeper into the network, but then fixed wireless access. But to me, those are all just different ways to connect, whether it's somebody in their home, outside their home, a business, a branch office. I think more importantly, and we're seeing this already, it's our service providers. They're an exciting place for the existence of time, delivering 5 nines of service to the most important organizations in the world. We don't see that stopping, but we do see them morphing into service providers that are not just delivering connectivity. They're delivering robust services that have observability, that have potentially inferencing at the edge and delivering AI. And the thing that we think about a lot is how can they leverage the footprint, a vast footprint of physical real estate, right? As latency becomes the new currency, how can they leverage this real estate that they have at the edge, because other organizations do not have that. So it's an exciting time, again, getting out of we're a broadband provider to we truly are an application service provider with a large scale infrastructure behind us.
Well, Greg, Neil, thank you so much for the great work you do with our clients, with our partners, with the teams that we have here at Worldwide, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt. It was a real pleasure.
Take care, Matt.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us as well on a great experts episode. And, this is one of 4 we have in a series on the telecommunications industry and how service providers are working with things like today's topic, as well as artificial intelligence, digital, and security. We've got those episodes and lots more out on WWT.com. You can see the calendar of what's coming up. Watch the back catalog on demand at any time, so please do that. We also love to hear your feedback, so if you get that survey via email, take a moment to do that, or just drop us a note via email directly and let us know how we did today. And with that, we'll wrap today's session. I appreciate you coming. We'll see you next time.